Hello and welcome back to our channel where we bring you the most interesting stories in finance. Today, we're diving into the legendary and often misunderstood story of Hetty Green, a woman whose immense wealth and notorious frugality earned her the moniker, the Witch of Wall Street. Her life is a fascinating tale of intelligence, discipline, and a deep-seated eccentricity that made her a figure of both admiration and scorn. Born Henrietta Howland Robinson in 1834, Hetty Green came from a wealthy Quaker whaling family in New Bedford, Massachusetts. Her father, Edward Mott Robinson, was a successful businessman who instilled in her a love for numbers and finance from a very young age. Instead of dolls, he gave her books on algebra and geometry, and instead of playing with friends, he had her read financial newspapers aloud to him. By the time she was 14, she was reading and managing her father's financial books, a responsibility usually reserved for adults in those days. Her mother, Elizabeth, was a strong believer in women's rights and education, which was unusual for the time period. This upbringing gave her an extraordinary understanding of finance and a mindset that valued knowledge and self-reliance. It also provided her with the confidence to operate in a man's world. However, her path to financial independence was unexpectedly cleared. When her father died in 1865, he left her a significant inheritance. An estimated $5 million, the equivalent of over $100 million today, along with half of his estate. While her father's death was a tragic loss, it was also a pivotal moment for Hetty. His death triggered a series of events that set her on the path to becoming one of America's wealthiest women. Just a few months later, her aunt Mary Howland passed away, leaving Hetty a sizable inheritance of nearly $1 million in cash and $3 million worth of securities. This sudden influx of wealth at a young age provided Hetty with a cushion that allowed her to pursue her passion for investing, without the immediate need to generate income. Combined with her father's estate, this gave her a war chest of around $9 million. A fortune that would be worth over $180 million today. Rather than following the societal expectations of her time and getting married, she chose to live independently. She moved to New York City and began renting rooms in various boarding houses, while continuing her studies in mathematics and accounting. This phase of her life was not only about financial preparation, but also about personal growth and exploration. She was particularly drawn to the emerging field of investments, an area that was relatively new. She wanted to make something of herself and saw the potential in this burgeoning industry. In fact, her independent spirit and unconventional lifestyle choices set her apart from the societal norms of the time. Back then, women were largely confined to domestic roles and were not expected to manage their own finances or invest in the stock market. But Hetty was not like other women. She was a trailblazer who dared to defy these norms and carve her own path in a male-dominated world. As the 1860s gave way to the 1870s, Hetty began to dip her toes into the world of finance. She started making some modest investments, primarily in government bonds, a relatively safe way to begin her investment journey. However, as she gained experience and confidence, she began to seek out higher-yielding, albeit riskier, investments in railroad stocks. One of her earliest big breaks came when she invested in the Erie Railroad. She saw potential in the company despite its current struggles, and decided to purchase a significant stake. This move proved to be a wise one. Over time, the railroad's fortunes turned around and Hetty found herself making a substantial profit on her investment. This success not only boosted her net worth, but also solidified her reputation as a shrewd investor. News of her success spread through the financial circles, and people began to take notice of this enigmatic woman, who was making a name for herself in a male-dominated industry. It was during this time that Hetty Green developed the investment strategies that would become her hallmark. Unlike many of her contemporaries, who were often involved in stock manipulation and corporate raiding, Hetty preferred to invest in tangible assets that she could understand and control. She focused on railroads and real estate, sectors that offered steady cash flow and long-term growth potential. She was not afraid to invest in companies or properties that others considered risky or undervalued. Her focus on blue-chip investments and her uncanny ability to spot undervalued assets helped her amass a fortune that would eventually make her one of the richest women in the world. Her investment philosophy was deeply ingrained in her character and shaped by her unique perspective on the world. She was known for her frugality and her astute understanding of market psychology. These traits, often seen as contradictory in the high-stakes world of finance, were actually the key ingredients of her success. Her frugality, often mistaken for miserliness, was a reflection of her commitment to her investment strategy. She believed in preserving capital and avoiding unnecessary risks, a philosophy that served her well in the unpredictable world of finance. Her understanding of market psychology enabled her to see through market hype and make rational investment decisions. She was not swayed by the herd mentality, but rather she used her sharp intellect and analytical skills to identify undervalued assets. As her wealth grew, so did the intrigue surrounding her life. People were fascinated by her investment acumen and her unusual lifestyle. Rumors spread about her habits and her eccentricities, often overshadowing her financial achievements. She became known as the Witch of Wall Street, a moniker that was a mix of admiration and scorn. Yet Hetty remained undeterred. She continued to navigate the financial markets with precision, proving her critics wrong at every turn. In the late 19th century, Hetty Green turned her attention to real estate, an area where she would make some of her most significant investments. She recognized the growing importance of urban development and saw tremendous potential in strategic pieces of land. Her first major real estate investment was in Chicago, where she purchased large tracts of land in anticipation of the city's expansion. As Chicago grew, so did the value of her investments. She saw the rise of new neighborhoods, the construction of new buildings, and the increasing demand for real estate in these areas. Her foresight paid off handsomely, making her a substantial profit and establishing her as a key player in the real estate market. Hetty's success in Chicago led her to expand her real estate portfolio to other parts of the country, including New York and Texas. She was particularly drawn to Manhattan, where she saw an opportunity to invest in prime real estate. She purchased numerous buildings in the borough, including the Manhattan Life Insurance Company building at 365th Avenue, now known as the Green Building. This building, constructed in 1908, was a symbol of her success and influence in the real estate market. Through her savvy real estate investments, Hetty further diversified her portfolio and secured her financial future. But Hetty's investment interests were not limited to real estate alone. She had a particular fondness for railroads, seeing them as a backbone of the growing American economy. She recognized the immense potential of the railroad industry and made significant investments in major railroad companies. One of her most notable investments was in the Erie Railroad, a company that had seen better days when she first started buying shares. But Hetty saw potential in the railroad's infrastructure and its strategic routes. She patiently held on to her shares, and as the railroad's fortunes turned around, she reaped substantial profits. Hetty's involvement in the Erie Railroad was not just about making money. It was also about exerting influence. She became a major force in the railroad's management and played a key role in shaping its future. Her business acumen and her willingness to take a long-term view of the railroad as potential made her a respected figure in the industry. It wasn't just about being a passive investor. It was about being an active participant in the growth and success of the railroad. Her investments in railroads not only diversified her portfolio, but also gave her a direct stake in the growth of the American economy. By the end of the 19th century, Hetty Green's net worth was nothing short of astounding. Her investments in real estate and railroads had paid off handsomely, making her one of the richest women in the United States. Her wealth at the time is estimated to have been around $100 million, a sum that would be worth over $3 billion today. Yet, despite her staggering wealth, Hetty continued to live a frugal life. Shunning the luxuries that many of her contemporaries enjoyed, she was content with her modest apartment and her simple lifestyle, finding joy in the intricacies of her investments rather than material possessions. As the 20th century dawned, Hetty Green's reputation as the Witch of Wall Street had grown. People were intrigued by her wealth, her frugality, and her uncanny ability to make sound investments. But behind the scenes, Hetty was dealing with a personal tragedy. Her son, Ned, had met with an accident that left him with a serious leg injury. This event deeply affected Hetty, showcasing a softer side to the tough businesswoman. Despite her vast wealth, she chose to take her son to a free clinic for treatment, an act that would later contribute to the formation of one of the most controversial aspects of her legacy. In the coming years, Hetty's health began to decline, and her once sharp mind started to show signs of confusion. Her close associates noticed that she was having difficulty managing her affairs and making sound decisions. They realized that the time had come to step in and help her, a decision that would lead to the eventual unraveling of the Green fortune. In 1916, at the age of 82, Hetty Green passed away, leaving behind a tangled web of wealth, eccentricity, and controversy. Her estate, upon evaluation, was found to be worth a staggering $100 million, an amount that was unprecedented for a woman at the time and would be worth over $2.7 billion today. This vast fortune was the result of her astute investments in real estate and railroads, industries that she understood well and where she had made some prescient bets. However, the distribution of her estate was far from straightforward. Her son, Ned, who had struggled with health issues due to complications from an earlier injury, was left with a reduced inheritance. This decision was seen as uncharitable and contributed to the perception of Hetty as a heartless miser. Nonetheless, the majority of her estate was left to her nephew, Edward, with the stipulation that he would pay out $150,000 annually to her former employees, a gesture that was both generous and magnanimous. Yet, as Edward sought to manage his newly acquired fortune, he encountered a series of legal challenges. Her estate faced numerous lawsuits from individuals and institutions that had dealings with Hetty. Managing this complex web of financial obligations proved to be a daunting task, and Edward found himself entangled in a labyrinth of legal disputes. She was seen as a brilliant investor who had successfully navigated the male-dominated world of finance and amassed a fortune that was the envy of many. Stories of her refusing to pay for proper medical treatment for her son only served to tarnish her image further. She had carved out a niche for herself as a shrewd investor and real estate developer, leaving behind a portfolio that was the result of decades of careful planning and investment. Her story continues to fascinate people today, making her one of the most intriguing figures in the history of finance.